Hello dudes and lady dudes, Jean here, and today we're going to talk more to my Canadian audience. So Americans might want to sit back and I guess you could watch what Jean reams into Canadians because it does pertain to America too. And as we see Trudeau now pushing a gun ban through the Order in Council, which is pretty much he gets to say which guns are banned without any voting or outside influence. Um, we need to ask ourselves how, could we allow this? How could it get there? Blah, 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 all the hows. Well, part of the reason is because of the Canadian gun owners. And in how it relates to America is one of our defense are always, we're not Americans. And this idea that somehow being Canada, we are safer than America with guns and blah blah blah, and not going to dissect that fully, but what you have instilled is this level that there is a point where gun ownership is dangerous, and because you have used this as your defense as to why you should be allowed to own guns, you've actually opened it up to why we should restrict guns. And this is ridiculous. This is something Jean has um, yelled at people for a long time. Is this idea that, oh, at least we're not Americans. This anti-American sentiment that is so pervasive in Canadian culture as a whole, but even on the right, Canadian conservatives have used it as a defense for things. And now all you have to do is say, well, look at America and their guns, and you, the right, have reasonably implemented steps for gun control because you have said that that just having all these guns will cause violence. And say, no, 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 that's not what I meant. I mean, there are mass shootings and there's school shootings and this and that, and it's just like, no, no, you have said there comes to a point of gun ownership where by allowing it, this happens. When you actually dissect what happens in the U.S., first of all, with the amount of people they have, they're expected to have more shootings. And so when you kind of scale that back, and if we look at America, if you take out places that are more restrictive than the average, if they're the places that are even more restrictive than Canada, there are places, California is actually more restrictive than Canada on most things. But if you take out their most restrictive cities, they're actually a lot safer than Canada. They're safer than almost the entire world. They're in like the bottom five countries out of 200, so bottom 3% of gun safety if you take out five cities. All right, and they're not even top 10 with the five cities. I think they're like number 13 or 14 with these five cities. Um, but if you take out those five cities, they are well below Canada. Um, and these are the restrictive ones. So what have you said? Well, we don't want to be as open as all of America because we're not crazy like Americans, and so you have opened this up. When actually, if we would completely loose our gun system, completely make it like 95% of America, we would actually, the place that's actually dropped down to, like, again, I think the third or fourth safest country in the world, and the countries that are below them are like tiny little whatever countries that probably don't have a permanent population. Um, no, they do just, yeah. Um, but yeah, this idea that we aren't American, so we don't have the same issues as them, it's bonk. First of all, you're not doing any help. Second of all, it's not true. It's misinformation. So you're now using misinformation to defend your side, but you're actually that defense can actually be just used as an attack against the very point you're trying to make, and it's reasonable. Your defense isn't reasonable, neither is the attack reasonable, but your defense is not reasonable. Start relying on facts of the issues. You can look at the facts of Stats Canada. Licensed gun owners are the safest demographic in Canada, safer than police officers and school teachers, than anyone. There's literally no other single stat line, maybe babies. Babies don't kill people or occur violent crimes. But adults out of 18 plus, licensed gun owners, there is no demographic that are account for at least percentage of violent crime than us per number of licensed gun owners, like per capita. Um, these are the stats we need to do. We should actually look at America to show how cities with very similar numbers, you put extreme gun control measures in one and have very little gun control measures in the other. The one with extreme gun control measures is far higher in gun crime, or violent crime, especially violent crime. Some people like to show out that while sometimes when they introduce gun measures, gun deaths do go down, but they forget that then twice as many people die from other means. Um, so depending on which stats and which city you're looking at, you might have to say, okay, yeah, to look at the issue fully, because that's one of the things. There's 10 times as many people down there. There's 10 times as many places to show our argument, but our argument should not be, at least we're not American. That's dumb. I mean, what? At least we don't um, recognize individual rights, innate rights, that we should be able to protect ourselves because the police. I mean, I think there was a 12-hour assault it took for police to get to the lady after people broke into her assault here in Winnipeg and beat her, stole from her, and left. But because it wasn't actively, they weren't in the house, the police were like, "Oh, we're not coming anymore." I mean, we'll get here when we get there. But that we should not have the right to protect ourselves because we're not American. Anyway, so this is just a shorter video that just use arguments, use logic. Don't use what's really a bigoted mind view. Well, at least we're not that, because now you've actually set up by saying that, see, Americans have a lot of guns. If we let Canadians have a lot of guns, we will become like America. We're not there yet, but we can't become that. If we get 10 trillion rounds of ammunition and a billion firearms owned in Canada, things won't get more dangerous. It'll probably get less dangerous, which we are a pretty safe country comparatively speaking, outside of a few hot cities zones. So that'd be pretty cool. So that was my thought. If you like, you do your YouTube things. Don't like, go feed a homeless person and spite me by letting me know how many. But thanks for watching and hope that you come back.